Hello, everyone. I realized that I haven't done an explanation of how, or sharing my story of how I got into death world and anticipatory grief coaching and mediumship. So let's get started. My name is Patty Montoya or Patricia Montoya. I was raised in Colombia, and my whole family is from Colombia. I have a lot of family still in Colombia. This matters because the way we experience death in Colombia, the way our family systems are in Colombia are very different than in the United States. And I've experienced both. So I can kind of share my story and my personal story and then my professional trajectory. Um, so when I was, before I was born, my mom and my dad had their first child whose name was Tomas. He was like the most desired kid ever. He was the first one. My parents wanted to have like 5 kids. Like they really, really were excited about kids. And my mom couldn't have kids for 5 years. So this kid arrives and it's just like the most desired kid ever, right? Um, he had a lot of difficulties. And then 2 years later, after he was born, he is diagnosed with brain tumor. Before that, he had broken both legs. Like it was just really complicated. However, and this is kind of part of the trauma that we've all experienced as a family. My mom was pregnant with my sister, and my sister is born. 15 days later, Tomas dies. So that's my first experience with death, and I've gone back and forth and said, should I share it? Should it not? Is it my story? Is it not? And I believe that my new theory is that it is my story because it's my family story. And the more we talk about generational trauma, like I'm carrying all of that, right? I'm carrying that expectation of like who's gonna die next. And this also tells a story of how we in my family deal with death, and how much we have gone through, right? So I decided to call it my story because it's part of my story. Maybe I didn't meet him, it doesn't matter because it's part of my story. Like, how do you go through life living when you know there's another brother that you never get to meet, right? Like, it is part of your history no matter what. You cannot just delete it, right? Um, so 15 days later, my sister is born. 15 days later, after my sister is born, he passes away. My mom had to deal with all of that, and I don't want to talk about that today. Maybe on another episode. Afterwards, I was about 5 or 6 years old, and my mom's dad passes away. Um, I have like pictures. Um, but the one that impacted me and kind of I can tell a story around more personally is later on my grandmother was got sick, very sick, and she passed away in 2007. Sorry, dates are hard. So that was kind of the first person I saw, and it was very beautiful because um, this is the first moment that I learned, okay, you can communicate with those who have passed away. You can know that those who are dying, um, like, you can know that they have messages for you, right? So our doctor at that moment told us, hey, your grandmother or your mom, right, whoever they were speaking to, is passing away. They have a couple of days. This is the moment to kind of say goodbyes. And it was very beautiful because that's the first moment that I have with anticipatory grief. I didn't know that word, I didn't know that term at that time, but I was feeling it. I was like, just anxiety, full of anxiety. I remember I was going through my like end of year exams, and I was really stressed because I needed to study, but I wanted to be with my grandma. But right, all of these things are just coming up for me. That was 2007. In 2008, my brother gets sick with leukemia. Again, I'm told the possibilities of him dying, of him surviving, are really, really low. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. He's surviving. Like, this is what's happening, right? Um, And a year of being sick, in and out of hospitals. Thank God I had an amazing doctor who helped me throughout it. I was able to talk a lot about what the feelings of anticipatory grief, and I posted a video about it. So if you have any questions kind of more in detail about anticipatory grief, is that feeling, that like that grief that you feel before someone passes away, right? And sometimes we don't want to acknowledge it, or other people don't acknowledge it because, like, well, they're still here. So it's like it doesn't matter that they're still here because it still hurts. We're planning for their death, right? Um, and I think it's very beautiful to be able to plan and listen to someone who is going through anticipatory grief. So my work has become very much like what I wanted someone to do while I was going through anticipatory grief, right? People don't ask you questions. They're very afraid of you, and you're very afraid of everything. Um, so when my brother is sick and passes away, that was really hurtful and difficult for me. He was 16 years old. I was 18 years old. I was finishing high school. So throughout that year he was sick, I was like in senior year applying to colleges in the United States. I get accepted into a school here in the United States. I'm planning on moving, but also, dealing with all of this situation. So it was very beautiful to kind of like, obviously looking back, it's very beautiful to be able to see how much I was able to talk to him and be with him and experience his kind of changes and loss. And I went into big kind of research, and I after my brother passed away, I had a really hard time with this death, obviously, but also I was very kind of, there was something that told me there's something that you need to do about this. So I started reading and researching and reading and researching, and just kind of getting all the information I could regarding, like death and the afterlife and just religion. I was very obsessed with religion and what does religion say and how does it explain it. And right, I just wanted to make sense of it all. And not everybody was able to explain it to me in a way that it would be sufficient for me to heal. So that was my brother. He passed away on Friday. On a Tuesday, my uncle, my aunt's husband, passed away from like a heart attack or something. I don't know. I was in like just a state of shock that I was just really not able to be as present as I wish I was. After that, I had two other uncles pass away in different years, and then in 2017, 2017 or 2018, sorry, my mom passes away. So again, really, really hard, very, very difficult. However, I just had more tools at that moment. It doesn't make it easier, it doesn't make it okay, it doesn't make it like obvious, right? My mom had a cancer previously, I don't know, 10 years ago, 10 years before her passing or something around those lines, which she survived, and it was a different cancer, and it just ate her up. So we quickly kind of figured that out, and then after her passing, it was a big change in my life, and I was like, there's something I need to do about this. I want to be a coach. I don't know what it is. And then it's a lot of in and thens, but I don't prepare for this. I just want to share kind of very intimate story. So after her passing, I started learning about anticipatory grief. I learned about death doulas, and again, in Colombia we don't have hospice because we're all so supportive of each other, right? Like, we have such a big family, there's so much support. So when I moved to Seattle, and the pandemic had arrived, I started Titiposa, and I was like, I'm talking about anticipatory grief, and it was very educational. I really wanted like to teach and share with people, hey, anticipatory grief is a thing, And the more you have resources and knowledge, the more you can kind of like heal and work through, right? Like the moment that I learned, hey, what is anticipatory grief, it changed my world. It was like, wow, now there's something I can do, right? I'm very much like, how can I fix it, right? Which is not the best mentality all the time, but sometimes it's helpful. um so I started in this kind of world, and I built Titiposha with anticipatory grief coaching. That was my service and my offerings. I got certified as a death doula, and I started working at a senior center, senior home. Um, and it was very beautiful. It was during the pandemic. So I was basically the person who they were seeing daily. And it was really rough, but it was very beautiful to see people who were passing away, who were in hospice, and understanding the difference between just cultural support. There's people that don't speak with their kids, or they don't have family, um, and we as death doulas, as support system, we are kind of their companions. So that was kind of a big moment for me to understand, what do I want to do. And every time I tell people about my story, and there's so much more I want to share, right? um, I bring it from the point of view of like, as a person who has suffered through anticipatory grief with all of the deaths, right? um, or most of the deaths, I have been able to kind of realize, hey, what would I have wanted someone to do at this point, right? So something that shocked me, here in the United States, people wait a while to do a ceremony of life or a funeral. In Colombia, like a day or two max, right? Like we're not waiting around, we're just kind of doing it. So there's a lot of things that are, sometimes might be moving faster than other people expected, or we expected it. um, the dynamics between a child and a parent, right? Like I lost my mom, my dad lost his wife, his partner, I lost a sibling, they lost a child. All of those dynamics are super hard, and thank God I have the tools and the understanding now, but I didn't have them back then. So all that to say that I always try to come from that point of view of, what would I have wanted when I was younger, going through that situation and offering that. Also, I am always trying to offer people kind of that support, and that kind of explanation of like, this is my story and this is how I work through my different situations. But every situation is so different, right? All my deaths happen in Colombia. I haven't lost anyone here in the United States, thank God, right? Because just thank God it hasn't happened. But yeah, all of that ran to just share a little bit more about kind of why I came into this world. If you relate, I would really like that you give it 5 stars and subscribe to this video. If you have any questions or any topics that you would like to discuss, happy to do so. I offer a 30-minute free consultation, and I have so many kind of wonderful ways that I love to share with people. So if you want to learn more about my kind of story and my offerings, just keep watching. Thank you so much.